Who watches The Watchmen, or better yet, The Batman? In this case, it's a young child. What started as a simple family trip to the circus, but turned into witnessing the horrible tragedy that made Dick Grayson an orphan, also became the impetus triggering another young boy's path to forever be entwined with Batman and the Bat Band. Watching through the years as he grew up, this young lad, after easily discovering the identities of Dick and subsequently Bruce Wayne, saw Dick outgrow the Robin role and take on the Nightwing mantle, watched as Jason Todd then joined Bruce's side as Robin, until also seeing Jason meet a tragic end by the hands of the Joker. He then watched Bruce, or Batman, seemingly losing himself and his way, and perhaps sanity, after feeling the blame of the death. It was at this point that the now teenager decided Batman needed someone at his side, and recognized this as his calling to join the Bat family. Well, you have Jason and Damian, Barbara and Dick, but do you recall the most famous sidekick of all? Hey everyone, my name is Jonathan, aka JK of JK Collects, and I'll be posting a new video at least twice a week, if not more. If that sounds of interest to you, please click that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. In this episode, we are taking a closer look at the McFarlane DC Multiverse Gold Series Amazon exclusive, Tim Drake, the Red Suit Robin. Okay everyone, welcome back and hello, and here we have it, our Tim Drake, the Red Suit Robin, the Amazon exclusive, right? So we got the gold label on there just to really highlight that it is an exclusive. I like that they do that, but I also appreciate that they are readily available, typically when they are an exclusive. If we flip over to the back here, some cool artwork, right? Better than I could ever do. It's got kind of a simple look to it, right? Almost like an animated type thing. It's not quite as in-depth or detailed as some of the other ones, but that's one thing that I appreciate, right? It's not just using the same artist's work every single time, as far as I can tell, because there's a lot of differentiators to it between one figure to the next, right? But this is very cool, a great representation of Tim Drake, the Red Suit Robin, right? And then over on the side, Robin Tim Drake, just to make sure we know who we have, right? And never forget the name. Same typical layout with the McFarlane boxes as usual, which I do appreciate that as well, right? Such simplicity to it, but then you have this figure shining through, right? The box doesn't serve as any kind of a distraction. Let's pop that open. Got the tape cut. Let's pull this tray out. Empty box. Let's move it out to the side. As we are done with that part, we'll take the tray out of the way and we do our usual. There is our stand to make sure that it can stand upright. Some figures have opportunities, and there is our collector's card with that same artwork on the back. And this one is a Death of Superman heavy box, more so than the Zatara on the side. So there we go. Another card for the collection as usual. And now we bring our tray back into view. And here we have a little batarang going on there, right? So let's pop that out. Kind of cool. And the staff is also taped in, so that is very helpful. I appreciate when a McFarlane toy does not have these bad boys. Oh, those are kind of flexible. There we go. So we'll come from behind that way. Let's get a couple of these arm ones. So we might have at least a little bit of leverage to pull this guy out. And as always, if you're doing this at home, definitely be careful. They do stretch fairly well. And if you can stretch it, then whatever blade you're using doesn't need a lot of force to cut it, right? It's going to just use that tension that's on the elastic. And then you end up with lots of elastic shrapnel. So there we go. He's free. But let's take a look at these accessories first. Let's pop it into manual so we can get nice and close and take a look at this. There we go, right? So a fun shape to this one, right? I do like it. It's very simple. It's cast of that typical rubbery black plastic so that it doesn't break. The points on it, the tips, they are pretty sharp. So just be mindful of that. You know, if you have kids or you're playing with this one, it does get a little bit sharp. It is somewhat flexible, but it's not quite as rubbery as we see with some figures or some lines. So it is, I mean, it is we'll say a semi-stiff plastic. No real detail on there, nothing really necessary to it. I think we've got the typical, maybe release agent on the plastic, and it kind of gave it a little bit of a change in finishes, right? So it was a little bit of a gloss to go with a little bit of a matte. probably kind of unavoidable when you're dealing with just casting some simple black plastic, but very cool. Like I said, simple black plastic. It's kind of all that needs to be. Let's pull the staff into view. So lots of textures on it, right? Lots of lines for grip, right? A little bit of a bend to it, but as usual, it is a flexible plastic. It wants to be its straight shape, so just a tiny bit of heat will probably get that restored back to normal. A bit of casting flash showing, but I can't tell. That actually, you know what? It's not horribly casting flash. Some of it is apparently actually sculpted, because that's a pretty heavy line that goes down here. But then as it continues on, there's a little bit of casting flash. Nice silver coating on it. Could have used, you know, dare I say, a little bit of dry brushing, a little bit of wash, add some texture, make it look like it's used, right? Because, I mean, there's no way this thing stays shiny all the time, nice and shiny silver. It is a great paint job. It is a very cool weapon, very simple. But now let's bring old Tim into view. So here's our guy. And as usual, just looking at it, very striking, right? I like the bright red. And I've seen it pointed out, right? So it seems quite obvious that this body wasn't necessarily originally intended for this figure, or at least these shoulders were not, right? Because if you remember the artwork that we looked at, he did not really have prominent shoulder pads. So you know what, let's pull our source material back. So there we go. It's more of a fitting body suit. So it seems like this upper part was definitely intended for something else, maybe a different color, but you know what? This is what we ended up with it. And if it gives us future opportunities for other Robins with cool armor, then okay, great, that's fine. It doesn't really take away. It just seems pretty apparent. Okay, I digress. Let's take a look at the face. See what we got here. Okay, it's getting a little washed out, so let me bring the lights down. Let's set the mood here for old Tim Drake. Okay. Now, he is kind of washed out by the lights. I'm going to bring him up just a little bit more. But it is also a pretty pale face. It does have some good blush application on it. You can see like right in the center of the forehead and there on the sides, even some on the chin. So yeah, very good. Very youthful face on this guy. And the head definitely moves very easily. Paint apps on it, that jet black hair. And I'm always apt to say that when it comes to paint apps, it never hurts to have something that can bring out those details, right? Just a little bit of a dry brush, a little bit of something in the hair. You know, yeah, can I suggest what it is? I don't know, maybe like a really dark gray or something to really make those details pop. I mean, not that the sculpting does not work for itself, but every little bit helps. The mask paint application looks very good. Let's check it out nice and close. Are we manual? Let's see, there we go. Let's adjust it as we get closer in. Yeah, even on the big screen there, I can see the mask paint apps are very well done. I don't see really any errors. The eyes are perfectly whited out, right? And they seem like they're taking up almost the entire space they're supposed to, but they're at least even if they're not even, okay? And lips look pretty good, right? So solid job, I would say, on getting this head painted. Now, let's see about head flexibility, side to side. Okay, I was a little concerned because it does not want to go that direction. So what's happening here is I wonder if, yeah, maybe it seems like we're on one of those barbells. So yeah, there we go. It didn't want to shift to the other side. So it does have good side to side if you can get that barbell to shift with the head. So you got to pull that over instead of just the simple like that, because that will work, but it won't go to the other side until we get that bell to go with it. And it takes a little bit of effort, but that's okay. Don't be afraid to give a little bit of love behind it. Now, that being said, since we have it, I'm optimistic for this because I don't see a lot of stuff that would get in the way. Up, wow, yep, that's very good. So solid look up, look at that. Yeah, he's ready to jump up on a building. And here he is looking down at about how far down it is from the top of said building. You always got to come back down. So very good mobility in there, and it seems quite obvious. Unfortunately, it's easy to get this gap right here. I'm not pulling on it. I don't really have it pushed too far. That could easily be a pose of like jumping from building to building, but it does put a little bit of a gap there. So just, you know, a mindful thing on that. But it is nice to have that in there for that flexibility, so that there's a lot of pose options for the head. And it also gives us the ability for this, the most important, the full Exorcist rotation. So there we go. And the neck itself is attached to the torso. So good thing we've got that barbell up there. I don't know if I mentioned it, but yeah, good thing for the barbell. So, butterfly joint in the shoulder gives pretty good potential mobility. It does go pretty far back, I gotta say, even with the cape here, because the cape is that rubbery plastic, so it's not really too much of a hindrance. It might slow a little bit because it does push it up and kind of help force it back down. But we have good rotation in there. And with this being cast red plastic, we don't have to really worry too much about rub off onto the yellow here. So, you know, that's good for rotating it around. It's easier for two paints to transfer than it is for like paint and plastic, right? And then we have bicep tricep rotation, which all the more reason why it seems like, you know, maybe we could have had something different that happened here. I do like the armor, don't get me wrong, I like the look, but it seems quite obvious it was not originally intended maybe for this figure. Double elbow, we do have visible pins, but you know what, I don't really think that's a pursuit that McFarlane is vocally going for right now, eliminating the pins, but who knows, maybe they're keeping hush hush, maybe there's something I missed. No forearm rotation. The wrist does rotate very well, and we've got that typical ball in there for the McFarlane wiggle is what we'll call it, right? So it's got the two pins on each end, so it gives a little bit more capability of spinning around and posing. Same stuff on the other arm, exact same functionality, and then with the wrist as well, we do have the McFarlane ball for the McFarlane wiggle. Patent pending, I'm sure. I don't know if they officially call it the McFarlane wiggle. I think they should if they don't. Well, look at that. He is just ready to go. What a automatically noble, I mean, just even these accidental poses, he's just automatically a noble looking Robin. The armor really does something for it. So I like the mid-torso or lower rib cage, the rib cage rotation and movement as far as going back. You know, not bad. Forward, also not terrible. We do have armor blockage, right? So here, these panels are impacting and slowing it down, and then the same thing back here. We've got this part that hits the panels down here and kind of prevents that, but it does have good rotation, right? And we also have some waist movement. It seems like it could potentially rotate, and it will, but we've got that same thing where it creates a cavity right there, and it is doing it. It's forcing the belt forward, so you do have to put a lot of effort on that, which is something that's going to be pushing on this. Fortunately, it looks like it's cast in a rubbery yellow plastic along with the cast red plastic. So not really a paint transfer concern, but still a wear and a push on the product concern. The external underwear is a rubbery soft plastic, so we do have the Robin split, the Tim Drake full-on split, right? I mean, you know, if you're gonna watch Batman all your life, definitely make sure you limber up for when that time comes and you're ready to go. So great flexibility with that typical joint that we see in there. No thigh rotation because we'd have a broken up thigh right there. Excellent mobility, right? Excellent capability to limber up. I mean, if you can do a split like that, of course you can stretch out your thigh very easily. That double knee does work pretty well. No thigh rotation, and no calf rotation, sorry. And then we've got the ball here on the foot, which is much similar to the McFarlane wiggle for the wrist, right? So it's got the pegs on each end, so it has excellent rotation, which you can travel that with it, forward and back. So we've got good possibility for a solid, painful looking broken ankle. Look at that. And then here with the Ninja Turtle toes, we do have toe articulation, so boom, perfect. Up and down a little bit. So, and same thing on the other side. We have the same McFarlane wiggle and McFarlane ball for that joint. What an exciting looking run. Okay, let's take a look at paint apps real quick, see how we're doing. We've already looked at the head, and it definitely passed. I can see with the cape, you know, we'll say they're imperfect lines, but I mean, how challenging is it when you're working with yellow and black, right? You have to get it absolutely 100% perfect. And when you're dealing with such a thin line like that, it's not always the easiest. So I'm not going to fault them really for that. They did way better than I would have. These buckles down the middle, not terribly done. You can kind of see some red shining through at the edges, but it's not where we have a horrible amount of one color bleeding over on the other. This one seems like it's very thick with the yellow. It almost looks like it's the light shining off of it, but that is because it's very thick yellow paint, a lot thicker than these other ones. These are a lot thinner, but down there, it seems like when they painted the the ab area, that piece, it had maybe a refresh of the paint, or had more program to spray on at that point. The rest of it is all cast plastic, right? So we got cast black, we've got cast red, and this is that rubbery yellow, rubbery black. So no real other places for paint apps. Could there have been some things to pull out some details? Sure, as always, but I don't really think it takes away, because it's still, when they don't do that, it kind of still maintains that comic-y, cartoony look, right? Because yeah, sometimes you have some comic books where the shading work and all that is impeccable and a lot of extra time put into it. But then some of the other ones, you know, not so much, because there's so much to draw. It is a comic, and it's all, I mean, you can make those colors pop. So there we go, and as you can see, he stands pretty easily on his own. But there he is, our Tim Drake Red Suit Robin Amazon exclusive, and we'll be right back with some 360 views of this guy. Thank you. Okay, here he is, our 360 view of the Tim Drake Red Suit Robin, the Amazon exclusive gold label from McFarlane Toys. I think it's a great figure. If you're a Robin fan, or the figure just stands out to you, definitely pick it up. It is still available, easily available. I think pretty quick shipping too. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed it. Well, that about does it. Thank you, as always, for checking us out and for joining us on this collecting journey. Look for at least 2 new videos each week, if not more. Be sure to subscribe and click that like button. It would really help us out, and it would honestly mean a lot to me. And if you'd like to see more videos, there are a couple of quick links on your screen right now for you to check out. But no matter what, as always, thank you for taking the time, and remember, we are all in this world of collecting together. Let's look out for each other. Thanks.